Welcome to this deep dive. Today our mission is really to tear down the single biggest roadblock that basically paralyzes parents who want to take control of their kids' education.
Yeah, it really is a massive roadblock.
Right. And we've got this comprehensive legal framework from Empowered Homefront on the desk today, which maps out state regulation levels across the country. Because the truth is, like, before you even look at a curriculum or plan out a daily schedule, you hit this massive wall of doubt.
Yeah.
You're just thinking, can I actually do this?
Exactly. Is this even legal?
Right. Is it legal?
It is the foundational question. And what we see is that without a crystal clear answer, people simply quit before they even start. I mean, they just fold up the idea and put it away. So our goal today is to completely dismantle that wall for you.
Because if you're listening right now, you are probably feeling the weight of that exact question. You want the facts, you want the perspective, and you definitely do not want to be overwhelmed by, like, a million contradictory opinions.
Oh, and opinions are exactly what you get when you step into this arena.
Oh, totally. I mean, picture this. You finally build up the courage to mention to a friend or a coworker that you're considering homeschooling. What is the very first thing out of their mouth?
It is almost always a rapid-fire break room interrogation. You know, is that even allowed? Or don't you need a degree for that?
Yeah, won't the school district come after you?
Right.
Instantly, you're forced to defend a choice. You are still just exploring. You're no longer just a parent making a thoughtful decision. You are, like, on trial.
Yeah, you're on the defensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So naturally, you do what any of us would do. You go home, you open your laptop, and you start Googling. And I liken this to diagnosing a headache on a medical website.
Oh, that is a dangerous game to play.
It really is. Because you type in, how to start homeschooling,
Yeah.
and within 10 minutes, you are drowning in terrifying, contradictory jargon.
It's just a flood of information.
Right. You read a forum post about umbrella schools, which, by the way, are basically just private schools that legally oversee your home education, depending on your state. But nobody explains that to you up front.
No, they just use the terms and expect you to know.
Yeah, and then you see terms like cover schools and notification of intent, and suddenly you think you need to hire a lawyer just to teach second-grade math at your kitchen table. You end up feeling 10 times more confused and terrified than when you started the search.
What's fascinating here is how quickly that information overload weaponizes our own psychology against us.
Oh, wow.
Because the fear isn't just about the law itself, right? It's about the scattered, completely unverified nature of the internet. But Empowered Homefront's framework slices right through that panic by delivering two massive indisputable facts.
Oh, lay them on us.
First, homeschooling is completely legal in all 50 states. Every single one.
Wow, all 50.
Yep. And second, not a single state requires you to have a teaching degree.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if it's legal everywhere and you don't need a teaching certificate, then the real issue isn't the law itself. The real issue is just localized paperwork.
Precisely. Now, to be incredibly accurate, there's a minor nuance in the data. A handful of states might require the parent to possess a high school diploma or like a GED.
Okay, sure.
But 0 states require a college degree in education or a state teaching credential. You do not need to go back to university to teach your own child.
Which fundamentally changes the conversation. I mean, you are no longer asking if you can do it. You are simply figuring out how your specific state requires you to do it.
Right. It's a totally different mindset.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Once we accept that it is legal everywhere, the natural follow-up is, okay, so how does the government actually track this? Like, what does the oversight physically look like on a random Tuesday morning?
And that is where the framework is brilliantly simple. It organizes the entire country into 4 distinct levels of regulation. While the specific rules vary by state, every single state falls neatly into one of these 4 buckets. And once you identify your bucket, all that ambiguity just vanishes.
So let's map this landscape. We start with level 1, which is categorized as no notice required. And this covers about 11 states, right?
Yeah, roughly 11.
We're talking about places like Alaska, Texas, Michigan, New Jersey. Oh, and the data also has this interesting asterisk next to Iowa.
Right. Iowa's a bit unique.
Yeah, it notes that it can straddle categories depending on exactly how you configure your setup, but generally it fits right into this ultra-low intervention group.
What defines level 1 is the complete absence of bureaucratic friction. I mean, mechanically, you do not file paperwork with the state. You don't notify the local superintendent. You literally just begin your educational routine at home.
I love comparing this to just like ghosting the traditional school
Oh,
system.
boosting. I like that.
Yeah, because if your child was never enrolled in the public system to begin with, you just don't enroll them. There's no awkward breakup text to send.
Exactly. You just don't show up.
Now, if they are currently enrolled, you obviously have to withdraw them so they aren't marked as truant. But beyond that administrative withdrawal, there is literally nothing standing between you and starting.
It really is that simple in their states. Now, moving to level 2, we have what is categorized as low regulation. This is a slightly larger group of about 15 states.
Okay.
You'll find places like California, Arizona, Nevada, and Wisconsin in this tier.
So if level 1 is ghosting, how do the mechanics change for level 2?
The mechanics are pretty straightforward. You send a notification. Usually this is just a standard form or a formal letter submitted to the state or local school district explicitly stating your intent to homeschool your child for the year.
Right.
But the psychology here is crucial. When you live in a level 2 state, you are not asking for permission.
Oh, that's a big deal.
It's massive. You are not submitting your proposed curriculum to be scrutinized, debated, and approved by a panel of judges. You are legally informing them of your choice. It is an FYI.
That is such an important distinction. An FYI, not a permission slip.
Exactly.
You are fulfilling a statutory requirement to inform, but the authority remains firmly in your hands. You just drop the form in the mail or submit it online, and you go about your business.
Yeah, you check the box, and the state essentially says, thank you for the update.
Okay, so dropping a memo in the mail as an FYI is easy, but the anxiety really spikes when we cross the line from a state saying, thanks for letting us know, to a state saying, prove to us your kid is actually learning.
Right. The proof.
That's where we hit level 3.
Yes. This brings us to moderate regulation, and it is worth noting that this is actually the biggest group in the country.
Okay.
About 19 states fall into this category, including places like Florida, Ohio, Washington, and Virginia.
Since this is where the majority of listeners are likely going to find themselves, let's really get into the weeds here. What does moderate actually mean in practice? Like, how do you prove it?
So in a level 3 state, you still start by notifying the state, just like in level 2. But the added requirement is that at the end of the school year, you have to show progress.
Show progress, okay.
Mechanically, this usually takes one of two forms, either a standardized test or a portfolio evaluation done by a certified teacher.
Okay, I have to push back here on behalf of the listener. Doesn't mandated standardized testing and portfolio evaluations defeat the whole purpose of homeschooling freedom?
I hear that a lot, yeah.
Because a huge reason parents leave the traditional system is to escape the pressure of, like, teaching to the test. Now the state is looking over my shoulder demanding test scores anyway.
That is the exact instinctive reaction most parents have. It feels like a trap.
Totally.
But we need to look at how this actually functions in the real world. The Empowered Homefront framework emphasizes a critical phrase here, and I love this. It is a checklist, not an obstacle course.
Explain that. Because taking a standardized test definitely feels like an obstacle course.
It feels like one until you understand the threshold. When you look at the mechanics, the state isn't asking your child to score in the 99th percentile to pass. They aren't grading you as a parent.
Oh, really?
No, in most of these states, the required composite score is incredibly low, sometimes just above the 25th or 30th percentile.
Oh, wow, okay. That's way lower than I thought.
Right. And if you choose the portfolio option instead of a test, it's even less stressful.
So what does a portfolio actually look like? Are we talking about some museum-quality exhibition of a year's worth of work?
Not at all. A typical portfolio is literally just a 3-ring binder.
Just a binder.
Just a binder. You put in a reading log, which is just a list of books your child read. You add a few math worksheets from September, a few from January, and a few from May to show progression.
Okay.
Maybe a couple of writing samples or, photos of a science experiment. You hand that binder to a state-certified teacher who does evaluations. And by the way, this is often just another homeschooling parent who happens to have kept their teaching license active.
Oh, that makes it so much less intimidating.
Exactly. They flip through it, have a 10-minute chat with your child, and sign a form that says, yes, an education is happening here.
Okay, that paints a completely different picture. It's less about the state micromanaging how you teach and more about them just verifying that some baseline education is occurring.
Exactly. You aren't being forced to mimic the public school's exact curriculum. You are simply providing a recognizable metric that your child is progressing.
Right.
Thousands upon thousands of families navigate this every single year without issue. Once you check that administrative box, your daily freedom remains entirely intact.
That makes a ton of sense. The mystery makes it scary, but the actual mechanics are pretty mundane. But we still have one category left, and this one sounds genuinely intimidating. Let's talk about level 4, high regulation.
Level 4 consists of just 5 states: Massachusetts, New York, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And there's no way around it. These states unquestionably ask for the most from homeschooling parents.
Yeah, I'm looking at the data for New York and Pennsylvania right now, and this looks intense.
It does.
I mean, we are talking about filing an initial notice, submitting individualized home instruction plans, keeping detailed ongoing records of attendance, tracking the hours of instruction per subject, filing quarterly reports, and doing annual assessments.
It's a lot.
If I live in one of these states, I'm freezing up. It looks like you have to run a DMV branch out of your living room.
It absolutely sounds heavy, and it does require more administrative diligence. There's no denying that. But this raises an important question, and it requires a massive paradigm shift for anyone living in those 5 states.
Okay, what's the shift?
The framework is very explicit about this. More regulation does not mean harder homeschooling.
Wait, how can more regulation not make it harder? You just agreed with my list of like 6 different things I have to file.
Because the regulation governs the documentation, not the education.
Oh, say more about that.
Uh.
How do you separate those two things in your daily life?
So think of it like being a freelance graphic designer. The art you create, the sketching, the coloring, the actual creative process, that's the core work. That is the teaching.
Okay, I follow.
Sitting on the rug, reading a historical biography with your kid, doing a science experiment in the sink, having a deep discussion about a math concept. That learning experience is exactly the same in a level 4 state like New York as it is in a level 1 state like Texas.
Right. The actual teaching part doesn't change?
Exactly. The regulation is just the freelance admin work. It's sending the invoice, tracking the billable hours, filing the taxes. It is a separate task entirely from the creative work.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
In a level 4 state, successful parents separate the two. You homeschool beautifully all week, and maybe on Friday afternoon you take 15 minutes, sit down with your coffee, and you update your attendance spreadsheet. You drop the week's best worksheets into a folder for that quarterly report.
You essentially compartmentalize the bureaucracy.
Precisely. We shouldn't minimize the paperwork. I mean, it is real work and it requires organization, but it doesn't change the joy, the flexibility, or the quality of the actual education. You just have a few more boxes to check on the back end.
So what does this all mean for you listening right now? We've mapped out the broad landscape of the United States. We've got 11 states where you just ghost the system, 15 where you drop an FYI in the mail, 19 where you prove progress through a simple test or binder, and 5 where you keep a very organized filing cabinet.
Right.
But you don't need to memorize a map of the whole country. You just need to know exactly what to do in your specific state.
And that is where we shift from theory to taking action.
Mm-hmm.
To figure out your exact requirements, Empowered Homefront points to what is universally considered the gold standard tool in this space.
Oh, what is it?
It's a website called hslda.org. That stands for the Homeschool Legal Defense Association.
Oh, yeah. I have heard of them. They are essentially the clearinghouse for all of this legal data, right?
Exactly. They maintain a free, rigorously updated database of every single state's laws. And the beauty of it is that it's written by lawyers, but translated into plain English for parents.
Which is so necessary.
Oh, absolutely. You go to hslda.org, you click on your state on the map, and it gives you a crystal clear step-by-step breakdown. It tells you exactly which of the 4 levels you fall into, exactly what subjects your state requires you to cover, if any, and provides the exact forms you need to submit.
Which completely cures the Google spiral headache we talked about earlier.
Yes.
You don't have to read through terrifying message boards from 2014 trying to decipher legal statutes on your own. You just go to one trusted source, click your state, and get your checklist.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the source material actually places this legal compliance within a broader 5-step methodology for starting a home education.
Okay.
They use the acronym DPAA. It stands for Decide, Protect, Align, Build, and Adapt.
Wait, you can't just drop an acronym like DPAA and not walk us through it? Give us the 60-second tour of those 5 steps so we have the context.
Fair enough, fair enough. The first step is decide. This is figuring out your family's why and really committing to the choice. The second step is protect, which is the legal compliance we are talking about right now.
Okay, got it.
The third step is align, matching your educational approach to your family's actual lifestyle and values. The fourth is build, which is where you finally pick your curriculum and build your daily schedule.
Which is what everyone wants to do first.
Exactly. They skip right to build, but you have to do the first 3. And then the final step is adapt, which is the ongoing process of tweaking things when a curriculum isn't working or, your child enters a new developmental phase.
That is incredibly helpful. It takes this massive, scary lifestyle change and breaks it down into a linear, sequential process.
Exactly. And the profound insight here is really about that second step, protect. Knowing your state's laws and complying with them initially feels like the most terrifying part of the whole DPAW framework.
Oh, for sure.
But once you use a tool like HSLDA to identify your level, this step completely transforms. It goes from being a vague, bureaucratic nightmare into the absolute simplest, most black and white step in the entire process.
It's so true. Because think about the other steps. Decide. Pinning down your deepest educational philosophy. That's incredibly nuanced and deeply personal.
Very personal.
Creating a daily schedule that actually works for a distracted 7-year-old and an energetic toddler. That is an absolute art form.
Oh, absolutely.
But protect. Sending a one-page notification letter to the superintendent because hslda.org gave you the exact template. That's just a to-do list item. You print it, you sign it, you check it off, and you move on to the fun stuff.
The ambiguity is the real enemy here. When you don't know the rules, your imagination assumes the worst. Once the ambiguity is removed, the fear just dissipates.
I love that. So let's take a step back and look at the journey you've just been on with us in this deep dive.
Yeah.
You came into this maybe feeling that weight, that paralyzing roadblock of, can I actually do this? Will the authorities knock on my door?
Yeah.
And you now know the underlying framework. You understand that the country is divided into 4 very manageable levels of regulation. You understand how things like portfolios and quarterly reports actually function mechanically in the real world.
You have the vision of what compliance actually looks like in practice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But most importantly, the phantom legal barriers have been completely dismantled. You know that the law is fully on your side. It is legal in all 50 states. You do not need a teaching degree.
Not one.
And you have the exact tool, hslda.org, to find out precisely what your state requires, down to the letter. Next time you're in the break room and that coworker hits you with the interrogation and asks, is that even legal? You don't have to get defensive.
Nope.
You don't have to flinch. You can look them right in the eye and answer with absolute unflinching confidence.
You know the facts. The debate is over. But as we wrap up this analysis, this does raise an important, almost provocative question for you to mull over. Because we've spent this entire time dismantling the external barriers. We've proven that the government isn't going to stop you. We've proven that you don't need a university to validate your ability to teach.
We've completely cleared the road.
We have. But if the law isn't the real obstacle, what if the ultimate hurdle is actually inside your own home?
Oh, wow.
Now that the legal fear is gone, the practical reality of daily life sets in. What do you do if your kid simply refuses to cooperate? What happens when they won't sit still? When they push back against your authority as their teacher? Or when they completely lose focus? If the state isn't the roadblock, is human nature?
Oh, that is the real question, isn't it? I mean, it's one thing to have a state's permission in a neat little folder. It's another thing entirely to get an 8-year-old to care about fractions on a Tuesday morning when it's sunny outside.
Exactly.
That is a completely different kind of challenge. So take a breath, look up your state's requirements, check off that protect step, and prepare yourself for that next great challenge. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.